Hey there, welcome to the Bronx Buzz. This is Bronx Nets program where we talk to reporters and writers and editors and filmmakers and photographers, anybody who puts stuff out in the Bronx. In our second segment, we're going to talk to a well known Bronxite who has a new short story out that is of a very personal and interesting nature that relates directly to life in the Bronx. So stay tuned for that. But to get started, we're going to say hello to a new guest. He's never been on our program before. It is Dave Colon. He is a reporter for Streetsblog. Nice to have you with us, Dave.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Dave, you've done a lot of, maybe before we even get into it, just a little bit about Streetsblog so people will know what it is, who it is, and what you folks are all about.
Sure. Streetsblog is a website that's been around, I think, maybe 15 years at this point. I haven't been there the whole time,
Okay.
but it focuses a lot on, I think, what people would call at this point livable streets. So, kind of ways to make the city work through the use of bike lanes, through emphasizing bus lanes on the surface, getting mass transit to work better, finding ways to get trucks off the road by things like cargo bikes. Basically, anything that kind of emphasizes what people would say, people-powered transportation, people-first transportation, instead of having kind of planning that goes car first.
Yeah. Um, so let's get into this whole idea of congestion pricing. It's fascinating because I think a lot of people don't know what it is, why it is. They hear about it. It might cost some people a couple of dollars in their pocket. Let's be boldly honest. Streets Blog is behind it, likes the idea. So why don't you say where this process is at? This dialogue has been going on for many, many, many years, but we're getting closer, aren't we?
Yeah, and honestly, yes, this has been something that has been talked about for quite some time. Officially, maybe back it started with Mike Bloomberg proposing it. It never really made its way out of Albany, where it needed to get the ultimate approval from. Before I go through all that, right now we are at the stage where the MTA has released what it's called an environmental assessment, which is a study of what the toll would the kind of effects the toll would have around the region, not just in the what they call the central business district, which is Manhattan south of 60th Street. Basically, if they put a toll to enter in a car south of 60th Street, and that would also mean when you come off the East River bridges, when you come through the tunnels that are down there, you would pay a toll of some amount. And what the EA studies is kind of the varying effects it would have on traffic, on air quality, on economic concerns, cultural and neighborhood character concerns, really anything you can think of. And this was something that the MTA waited for a couple of years to know whether or not they had to do this. It got kind of held up during the Trump administration. People said they were playing politics, which certainly seemed to be the case because when Joe Biden took office, the United States Department of Transportation said, over more quickly, certainly than the Trump people did, you can do an environmental assessment. So they took a
So
number of months.
they got the process started.
Yes. So the process started with that. And now the environmental assessment has come out. We're in a comment period for it. You can comment on it up through September 9th, I believe. They've had some, kind of a video conference comment periods. People can give their opinions on it, whether they're pro or against. It's right now, this is the hearings are supposed to kind of be getting at, does the environmental assessment do and show that congestion pricing does what it says it would do? Does it improve air quality? Does it reduce traffic? Does it provide funding for the MTA, which is also an important piece of this?
That's really I just want to get to that. That to me is the biggest thing. If you're going to charge people money, and make sure that that money goes to mass transit. Because if you're going to say to people it's going to be more expensive if you go into Manhattan, well, you say, all right, then I'll take the train. But if the trains are not, they're still behind schedule, there aren't enough trains, they're overcrowded, they're not safe. I mean, on and on and on, which a lot of people are concerned about when they go, let's say, to a show in the evening or dinner and a show, they're going to, have to pay an extra toll to encourage them to get onto mass transit and have that not improved. doesn't work,
Right.
right?
So absolutely, and I've just been doing this for so long at this point, so I'm sorry if I get ahead of myself sometimes.
That's okay.
The ultimate goal of this is it is legislatively mandated that it has to raise $1 billion a year for the MTA's capital plan. And obviously, and the capital plan is different from the operating budget, where the operating budget is here's how we run the trains, we pay people to drive the buses, drive the trains, so on. The capital budget is what goes towards system improvement, system upkeep, the things that you were just saying. Do we want to make the signal system, more of a 21st century signal system? Congestion pricing is supposed to help with that. Do we want to install more elevators, accessibility options? Congestion pricing is supposed to help with that, because ultimately what the $1 billion is supposed to do, and what's set for the current capital plan that the MTA has, is it's supposed to raise $1 billion, and then that will be bonded out to $15 billion.
When drivers got a raise in tolls on the bridges, the various bridges, and it's happened over a period of years, there's been a lot of concern that that money never really found its way to the MTA, much like the campaign for fiscal equity. They never found the lottery monies never found its way to the education department. Are you convinced that there's enough administrative infrastructure that if that's what happens, the money will really go, and then riders on the MTA will see improvements?
Well, you know what? The law says that there's something that they created, a capital program lockbox, which is something that this money and a couple other new taxes that the state created to help fund the MTA capital plan when congestion pricing was passed, all that money is supposed to go into what they call this lockbox. And that does mean that this money just goes directly there. There's potential ways that you can change the law to say that we want this money to go towards the operating fund instead, that we want this money to go somewhere else. But it would really take kind of, I think, a huge sea change for people to all of a sudden say, we're going to get behind an idea to take money out of the capital plan, only because this capital plan, if you remember Andy Byford, was something that he helped push over the line. It's something that people have been really looking forward to getting the transit system, not only kind of to a decent state of good repair, but to a real 21st century system that can actually kind of avoid a lot of signal problems, that has modern rolling stock, that is taken care of better. So in that sense, that is why the state created the lockbox in the same time that they created this charge.
There's been a lot of talk about exceptions. Now, let's just say somebody needs cancer treatments and goes to a medical center that's below 60th Street and needs to do that every day, or rides an accessorized vehicle, a senior citizen who needs some kind of medical treatment has to go below 60th Street. And there are many other exceptions that are out there. There's talk about trucks, different types of trucks, ones delivering medical supplies. I mean, I don't know the whole list. And some people say no exceptions because that'll open up a can of worms. There are other people who say, like, just using the example of somebody who needs cancer treatments down, at the NYU Center on 34th Street. It goes down there every day. Really, are you going to take these people's money? I mean, that's just kind of a weird way to go about saving the world. So what do you think about that? Are we going to be able to come up with equitable exceptions, or no exceptions? Find another way to get downtown.
Sure. So, there's a couple things to think about with the exemptions to the toll. One of them is that there are already a couple of exemptions in the law. Emergency vehicles. There's what they're calling a tax credit for people who live in the toll cordon south of 60th Street. If your household makes less than $60,000 a year, you get a tax credit for what you have paid to go in and out. And then the third one is vehicles that are carrying disabled people. So something like Accessoride would be exempt from this. And then when you start talking about other exemptions, the problem is twofold. You mentioned the whole thing about, well, you've got a can of worms, and one person will say, well, I have just as noble of a reason to be exempted from this as somebody else.
That's right. Yeah.
And what happens is the more exemptions that you put on this toll, the higher the toll has to be for everyone who winds up paying it. because it's legislatively required to raise $1 billion. Now, I think that you can say everybody has a different, I don't want to say sob story because that sounds a little bit too dismissive, but everybody has a case that they can make to say, well, I have to go there, or I like to drive there, or whatever it is.
Right.
I've seen people also say, in terms of, let's say, your, person who has to go to Midtown for a medical appointment, there are people who take the train or take the bus who do that, and they still have to pay. It's not something where you say, well, we get it. You have a very heartfelt reason, and we're gonna not have you
Right.
do
It
this.
will be interesting to see what the public's commentary is like, according to the various assessments. Before we run out of time, one last thing, which of course is very personal to the borough of the Bronx. Many people are saying this will force trucks to get on more trucks on the Cross Bronx, if you can even imagine that. I mean, I don't even know how that works, or doesn't work. So what about those kinds of considerations that say it'll force traffic into other places?
Sure, sure. So
We
I
only got
think that
about
that's
60 seconds. So
okay. Well, the issue of the Bronx is one that the MTA has said there will possibly be more cars and more trucks, especially depending on the scenario. Richie
okay.
Torres has been right when he's talked about this, the congressman. Depending on which tolling scenario there is, this is a big opportunity for the city, the state, the federal government to kind of come together and say, okay, we see this could be a problem going forward, so we're going to do some of these things. We're going to make the Hunts Point Terminal Market greener. We're going to find ways to start capping the Cross Bronx Expressway. We're going to put these resources into finding more ways to get
Yeah.
polluting vehicles out of the South Bronx. And, this is a big opportunity to do that.
So the timing is just, let's just lay it
Sure,
out there. The
sure.
timing is
Right
the
now,
hearing on, or the final comment period is September 9,
yeah,
and then
I
what happens
believe
after that?
I believe it's through September 9th. There's commentary period. Then the MTA is going to go back. It's going to look at all the comments. It's going to go to the federal government and say, here's what people have said. They're going to come out with basically by December, people are thinking that the federal government is going to issue its final declaration, its final ruling on congestion pricing, either December or January next year. If it says, okay, you guys have done the requisite amount of work, and we believe you that this is going to do what it says it will, and it won't have horrible impacts on other people, then the MTA has an opportunity to
Right.
start putting the toll infrastructure in, and it would start probably
Got it.
by the end of 2023.
And it will all be done by license plate, I guess,
Yeah,
photographs
yeah,
or something
Easy
like that.
Pass, similar kind of thing.
Dave Cologne, we're probably going to ask you to come back as this thing
Oh,
moves forward, because you're an expert and we want to hear a lot about it. And thank you for taking your time. Best regards to all our friends at Streetsblog, and we'll see you around town. Thank you
thank
so
you for having
much.
me.
Great. All right, folks, we'll take a short break. When we come back, we are going to visit, as I mentioned, with a popular Bronxite who has written something that you're going to want to know about. We'll be right back.